Now, yesterday, Eskom announced that it was due to shift from stage 2 of load shedding to stage 4. Now, stage 4 will last until early on Friday morning, when stage 2 will be reinstated until 5 a.m. on Saturday. This has put strain on several businesses and particularly small enterprises. Let's discuss the impact of this with Mr. Tebogo Khaas, who is president of the SMME Forum. Mr. Khaas, good to have you with us on the Daytime Update today. Now, it has traditionally been a really tough time for small businesses, not only with the impact of COVID-19. We've spoken several times on how that has impacted you. But talk to us now about the impact that these blackouts are having on small businesses.
Yeah, thanks, Tammy. You know, for far too long, small businesses have been left unsheltered under the reign of incompetence, injustice, and corruption that is afflicting all facets of our society. And as it relates to the power outages that are rampant, I mean, to say these are devastating to small businesses would be an understatement. Many businesses have been forced to close shop, especially those who rely heavily on energy, on power, on electricity. Can you imagine what would happen to a business that has been forced to close for at least 4 hours, and in some instances longer, because even when the power outage has been lifted, in some areas the power doesn't come back immediately. So in most instances, all they have to do is just to close down and just hope that this problem will go away at some point.
And when a lot of these small businesses do close down for the day or for whatever period that the power blackouts are going to be, what happens then as far as workers are concerned and the expectation of remuneration? They did, after all, maybe even come to work.
Absolutely. If you can't generate income, if you can't generate revenue, you can't pay your employees' salary, you can't pay your rent, you can't pay your operational costs. And what are you left with? Either going to have to lay off some people or run into serious debt. And as we know that already the environment says that in the small business are trying to recover from the effects of the COVID pandemic, which has been with us almost 2 years now. And most of them haven't had any relief whatsoever from any source whatsoever.
And what support do businesses need in order to survive this tide of power blackouts? We do know that for the foreseeable future, this is going to be the reality for South Africa and South African businesses.
We've heard of many promises from government, especially where ostensibly programs are going to be put afoot to help small businesses to alleviate the kind of problems that they're having with regards to cash flow. But they're still to see the light of day in most instances. Still to meet any SMEs who have benefited from any of such programs, especially the provincial government-led one. And I'm not suggesting that nobody has. It might very well be that I just am not aware of, or we are just not aware of that. But with that in mind, it means that small businesses, like what Steve Biko once said, is you are on your own. We have to be able to find ways to survive. We have to be able to find ways to mitigate whatever impact that these shortages of power or power outages are having on their businesses. In some instances, they may be able to work around power availability. In other words, if power is available midnight, it means some people might have to produce whatever goods that they need to do in the still of the night when the load shedding is not operational. But that is not what business ought to that's not the environment that's conducive for business development or sustainable business development. In fact, in most instances where business rely on technology, for instance, you might have power back in your area, but you might find that the base stations that is supplying you with the network communication services, maybe in an adjacent ward or suburb where they're experiencing power outages. So in other words, you may very well be down for longer than double the amount of time that you expect to be up. So it is cataclysmic, to put it mildly. And until government really takes this seriously, and do something about it, we are just headed for the cliff.
I mean, as you mentioned earlier on, small business is feeling like you're on your own when it comes to energy and the provision of power. The options that are available to you are the likes of using solar energy and perhaps even generators. How palatable are these options for small businesses, and what are the barriers that prevent you from going that route?
To start with, acquiring generators is an expense, and generators, the price of generators have soared over the last few years since load shedding have become a daily occurrence in our lives. So affordability is an issue. And remember, business still trying to recover. So to have an added capital outlay for many, it's not even a consideration. And secondly, even diesel itself is expensive. So to run your business on generators itself have got an added burden of eating on your profits. So because your price, your input prices are going to be high, and you might very well find that it is not easy to pass on 100% of that cost onto the consumers because they are also feeling the pinch in their pocket. So the solutions also, I mean, the power, the clean energy, solars, it's even don't even consider that because those are even much more expensive than generators themselves. So the problem is so dire, so much so that we honestly do not know what it is that government expects people to do when so many people are not really taking their job seriously, or even for whatever reason, whether it is because of lack of maintenance, or that sabotage, or whatever it is. We don't really care about the conspiratorial issues, but the problem needs to be sorted, and government needs to prioritize this. If you have to declare a national disaster on energy, so be it, but make sure that on a daily basis you communicate so that communities can know what to expect or to anticipate as far as power availability is concerned. I was just chatting earlier with a friend of mine about my experiences visiting Nigeria in the late 90s and early 2000s. We used to laugh about the poor power supply in Nigeria. In fact, the National Energy Power Authority of Nigeria at the time, which had the acronym NEPA, was even referred to never expect power again, because every household, every business had to have a generator on board to make sure that it operates. That is what we are going to be left to do in South Africa. Unfortunately, the costs are just prohibitive. So at this rate, we really shouldn't be expecting power anymore because people can't even conduct their meetings. I cannot have access to Wi-Fi where I am. I have to rely on the data on the phone to make sure that I can get connectivity. And we know the added cost of that. So government ought to be very serious and take this issue of energy as a national issue of disaster. And so far, we see, I really don't see the urgency from government.
And,
we don't hear from the minister.
You spoke about expectations a little bit earlier on, Ntate Khaas. The Minister of Finance, Ina Kotongwane, will be presenting the medium-term budget speech on Thursday. What would you like to hear him say regarding this situation and specifically issues pertaining to small business?
Everything that needs to be said has been said before. What is left undone is what needs to be done. So they need to follow up on the things that every minister before him had said ad nauseum, what the president had said ad nauseum, what the minister of small business and so forth have said before him. We all know what needs to be done. We all know what needs to be said. But it is in the doing that we fail. We fail to make accountable those who are responsible for the problems that are faced by Eskom. We fail to call to order or to prevent the kind of disasters that are happening at Mudupi, Kusile, and so forth. Because now we are actually lucky to even have the lights on. We are lucky to hear that today we've got 1 hour of uninterrupted energy supply. So what needs to be done is what we should be focusing on, not what needs to be said. So the minister can say all that he wants. And we've heard it all before. They've said it all before. But the problem is what needs to be done.
Well, summed up and articulated there, that Tebogo Khaas, he is president of the SMME Forum on the blackouts and the impact that the lack of power and energy is having on small businesses in South Africa. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Khaas.